Behold, King Stephen's castle, and in yonder topmost tower, dreaming of her one true love, lies the Princess Aurora. Yes, time once again to take a look at Walt Disney's Sleeping Beauty through some of the memorable and magical memorabilia that's been produced over the years. This magnificent animated feature was released in January of 1959, and though it's so challenging to narrow it down, it really is my favorite Disney animated feature. But I make a point of featuring King Stephen's castle, Sleeping Beauty Castle, for a special reason. What is it, you ask? I'll tell you about that at the end of this video, so be sure and stay tuned. One reason is definitely the talent behind this great film, which incorporated so many of the great Disney artists, everybody from Marc Davis and Ken Anderson to Walt Disney himself. And in my previous video about Sleeping Beauty, I showed you this VHS release from 1998. And first of all, I showed you that I wrote the copy on the back of this box. But what makes this particular box that I hold in my hand so precious to me is that it was autographed by Mary Costa, who does such a beautiful job both singing and speaking for Princess Aurora. But this time I thought I would also show you this commemorative booklet, and I'm sure many of you have it. And I was very lucky to be able to write this. So it tells behind the scenes stories of how the film was made with lots of great art and some photos of the artists who made the film, including, once again, Marc Davis. And it's so interesting to note that Marc Davis was the directing animator for both Princess Aurora and Maleficent. So how often does that happen in a single feature? But again, this particular copy that I hold in my hand is very precious to me because, again, Mary autographed it for me. I'll hold it closer so you can see. And in her beautiful handwriting, she says, "To my special and talented friend, Jim Fanning, with my deepest admiration and respect, Mary Costa." So you can see how this is very, very dear to me. And Mary, if you're watching, thanks again for always being such a great friend to me. Of course, there was wonderful memorabilia released concurrent with the original issue of the film in 1959, but there's been merchandise ever since. For instance, here are some Valentines issued, I believe, in the 1990s. And I really like this because it definitely reminds me of the film and this great art of Aurora and Prince Philip. And we have things like paper dolls. This particular one is not as elaborate as some of the ones we've seen over the years, but it's really beautiful in its own right. We have some great costumes. And then, just by the way, some supporting players on the back that you can stand up. And then this is really great. The Magic Slate Paper Saver that everybody loves. This is always so fun to draw on. You get this little stylus here. And you can draw on it here, and then lift it up and it disappears. This was issued, as were the paper dolls, by Golden Books, or Western Publishing, same difference. And this art, which is so appealing, of Briar Rose and her animal friends, is by Al Hubbard, who drew the classic Sleeping Beauty comic books. These magic slates, of which there are so many, quite a few Disney topics as well as other licensed characters over the years. And they're hard to find in good shape, so I feel very lucky to have this one, which even has the stylus still attached. Again, in my previous Sleeping Beauty video, I showed you some golden books. Here's an example of a golden telltale books that tells the Sleeping Beauty story. As you can see, they're quite small. Take a look at this cover. Isn't it wonderful? It really shows how beautifully these golden books were produced, even with a book this tiny for very small children, or at least it was intended for such. The art is so beautiful. And wouldn't it be great if this art was reproduced on a bigger book? Well, Disney Publishing did just that. You can see it's the same art. And here it is on a big golden book size. Although this is not officially a big golden book, but throughout they use the art by Norm McGarry. That was originally published in the 1959 Golden Telltale book. So how great that Disney Editions thought to do that. And we can really take a good look at this beautiful art. Last time I also showed the Dell Giant comic book which is quite elaborate and lengthy and beautifully illustrated by Al Hubbard. At the same time, the story was published in the more conventional size comic book. The Dull Giants were 25 cents. This was only 10 cents. And to differentiate it, it's entitled Sleeping Beauty and the Prince. And it's interesting because this is basically the same story adaptation, for the most part the same art, but kind of cut down and rearranged. There were much bigger splash panels in the giant version. Maleficent's castle here and the Forbidden Mountains, which was a half page or even bigger splash panel. And here it's cut down to fit the traditional format. So it's extremely well done. And it's interesting to see that there is also this little activity in the back. Saddle the Princess White Charger. So it's this cutout of Samson, Prince Philip's horse, and Prince Philip himself, and you put it together, and the directions are right here. So it says, here for you to color and assemble is a likeness of Prince Stephen, his beautiful horse Samson, and his saddle. Cut out the, wait a minute, Prince Stephen, that's actually what it says. So that's an error because, of course, this is Prince Philip. Stephen was King Stephen, who is Princess Aurora's father. So quite a mistake to find, but actually maybe they even meant Stefan.
This place has everything.
So it seems that this comic book really does have everything, even an error, which in my mind should make this more valuable. But I wonder how many people have even caught that. Now, another aspect that was not as common in 1959 as it is today, what with direct-to-video sequels and TV series, etc., is further adventures of the characters. But there is this comic book that has the further adventures of Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, who are, of course, the three good fairies. And this comic book contains some fun and imaginative stories. I think there are 3 about further adventures of the fairies. And it's fascinating to note that the title is Sleeping Beauty's Fairy Godmothers. Well, that's not accurate because, of course, they were not Aurora's fairy godmothers. They were just good fairies who were gift givers and appointed themselves her protector. But you can kind of see why they might have called it this. You couldn't really call it Sleeping Beauty's Good Fairies. That just sounds odd. So they gave them this special designation, and it just makes it more interesting. All these stories inside were again drawn by Al Hubbard, who was the master illustrator of the Disney animated feature characters in the comic books. On the back cover, what a great idea to include this, Flora's Fudge, an actual recipe. Flora's recipe for fudge is almost as easy as magic. That certainly fits with the theme of the Good Fairies. Just follow the directions step by step, and you will have some very delicious candy to serve to your friends. Great cover on the front and a back cover that has a recipe. What could be better than that? And speaking of further adventures, here we have another little golden book. I showed you the direct adaptation of the film in the first Sleeping Beauty video that I did. And here we have the further adventures of Sleeping Beauty and her dear protectors, her aunts, as she called them, as Briar Rose. It shows the story of the 3 fairies returning to the woodcutter's cottage in the glen, and this is really fun. It was in this very cottage that the 3 fairies had raised the little princess from her christening day, and now she was coming to visit them here. It shows this great illustration of the 3 fairies with little Briar Rose, before she was 16 years old. It's a little girl, and Fauna is reading a story. And then I always love this. The fairies kind of carrying Aurora through the air to the carriage so they can all go to the castle together. So it's just this lovely, charming, and very cute story. Now you'll remember at the beginning of the video, I told you I had a special reason for pointing out Sleeping Beauty Castle. And that's because I wanted to show you something very special. And here it is. Isn't this wonderful? This is a booklet entitled, as you can see, Sleeping Beauty Castle. And this was sold at Disneyland when the interior of the castle was open to guests with the special attraction of the Sleeping Beauty story within the castle walls. Walt realized that not being able to go into the castle itself was not only a waste of space, but also wouldn't guests long to actually enter that famous Disneyland icon. So when the Sleeping Beauty interior walkthrough debuted in 1957, this booklet was made available as sort of a souvenir and to help tell the story, because as you know, when you walk through the castle, you saw various scenes that beautifully told the story of Sleeping Beauty. Remember, 1957, Sleeping Beauty wasn't released until 1959. Very interesting that this was so early. I'll interrupt telling you about this booklet to show you again, what? A Christmas album, that's right. Because as you know from my video about Christmas albums, this is of the Tennessee Ernie Ford TV special, The Story of Christmas, which featured the animated sequence designed by Ivan Earl, and you can see some of the art here. And Ivan Earl, of course, was the production designer for the movie Sleeping Beauty and responsible for its look. He even painted many of the backgrounds himself. But take a look at how beautiful this is. This was painted by Ivan Earl. And just magnificent. It reflects the look of the castle and the surrounding countryside of King Stephen's Castle. And you can really just spend hours looking at this and all the detail and all the beauty. Inside, equally elegant art. I mean, just take a look at this. These scenes as imagined by Ivan Earl. Some background information introducing the characters. So by the time the film would be released several years later, guests would be familiar with them. This great little spot illustration of a character you don't see portrayed very often. Again, like a great little Disney detail. And in the front, this introduction by Walt Disney. And I'll read some of it to you. It's really so beautiful. First of all, there's this great statement about imagination. Imagination is the mold from which reality is created. He says, now, as a result of our vast research and motion picture production efforts, Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland has been completed. Through the medium of key scenes from our film, we have symbolized its timeless enchantments. Here, behind these castle walls, in these towers and courts, may be seen the joys and tears of the beautiful Princess Aurora, mingled in her great adventure with the powers of good and evil. We hope the magic spells of these scenes and sounds will revive in every beholder's heart some image of his own most precious dreams, the dreams from which all enduring fairy tales are made. Signed, Walt Disney. Now again, for collectors, if you're going to get this, you want it intact, and that means with this little ticket almost here, because sometimes you'll see this booklet, and of course this might be missing. And this is a free envelope. If you desire to mail this Sleeping Beauty Castle booklet, is available upon request at the Arts and Crafts store in the castle courtyard. Isn't that wonderful? So you could buy this, get a free envelope, so you could mail it from Anaheim to wherever you were from, Ohio or Arizona or wherever, and then you could remove this coupon, and then additional copies with envelopes, 25 cents each. So this booklet was handed out free, can you believe that, to those guests visiting Sleeping Beauty Castle. But wait, we're not done yet. There's something else deep within this booklet that makes it even more special and desirable. And that is this magnificent fold-out. Yes, take a look at this. Look how great that is. And also really emphasizes the widescreen splendor, because of course Sleeping Beauty was made in the widescreen process of Technorama 70. So this really made one think about how great it was going to be to see the movie itself on the mammoth screen. And this piece of art is interesting because, of course, it's a publicity still, and you will see it sometimes not as long as this one is, but much narrower, I guess you would say. And Prince Philip has moved way over here. This is just another aspect of this booklet that makes it such a treat. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at some more magical merchandise inspired by Sleeping Beauty. And if you did, please take a moment to both like and subscribe. And I hope you'll join us next time for a new video when our guests will be Henry Walden, Harper Worthington Yates, and the team of Rogers and Sorrell. They'll be here to give their views on the subject of writing. Who cares? See you then.